Hi, this is Jerry, and because of the interest in our uploads on the website, uh, we thought it would be best to do a video on our system that everyone's interested in. Rather than make it so long, we've decided to divide it into three different groups or three different videos so that they're shorter and you can concentrate on one or the other whenever you want. I would recommend you watch all of them, though. That gives the overall view of everything that we've done and why. As you can see, we're in Santan Valley, Arizona, a ways out of Phoenix, maybe 15 miles. We're not in prison. You can see our block walls behind us. That's just the way they build their fences for most of the homes around here, because of the longevity, the heat, the wind, and of course we would have a wind today which I hope doesn't interfere too much with the sound. This first part, we just want to talk about a little bit about our background and why and how we have come to develop the growing the garden system that we have now. As you can see, we're not techies. We don't pretend to be, but you'll just have to put up with it, and hopefully you'll gain some information that will help you adapt to your specific growing climate and area. And I will say that this is not a be-all, end-all system, but I will just give you a little background of how we came to where we are right now. We raised our family in Northern California, and we had a larger lot, and so we were able to grow in the ground. I hauled in two semi-trailer loads of mulch to add to our clay soil to hopefully loosen it and make it so that it was more usable and so on. We grew corn, we grew tomatoes and other things. We had corn, as they say in the song, as high as an elephant's eye. We grew indeterminate tomatoes. Those, of course, are the ones that will continue to grow up if you prune them. And we grew them because our season we could grow all summer there. And we had tomatoes, wonderful, beautiful tomatoes. We moved to another house as our family got smaller, and we didn't have much room, almost about the same size as the backyard as we have now, which is not large. It had lawn in the middle, and so we decided we wanted to grow around the perimeter. I got online and found square foot gardening. Mel Bartholomew developed that idea, and their mix, and we grew in like 7 to 8 inches of soil in wood grow beds and with drip lines, and we again grew very tall and great tomatoes. We even grew some corn and so on. So that was successful. We found, however, that just adding compost we didn't think was adequate. So we would supplement it with fertilizer. Don't want to get into too much on fertilizer on this first one, because we're going to talk about the soil mix and fertilizer in another session. And the next session we're going to talk about our system now that we have, how it works, and try to give as many details as we can that might help you to use part or whatever to adapt to your area. Anyway, so we had success with that. We moved to Arizona 8 years ago. We put in a garden right away, and so this is the 9th season of our gardening here in Arizona. We put in raised beds, square foot gardening, the same mix that Mel Bartholomew used, and we supplemented it with some fertilizers. And I got interested in continuing to learn. I got interested in the Mittleider system. I didn't want to do sand and sawdust as a growing medium, but I liked the idea that they had a fertilizer that you could mix with, say, triple 15, and it would have like 13 additional trace elements, which was good. In our raised bed system, we use cinder blocks, only the 8-inch high cinder blocks. That's all it's as deep as our soil was, and we use a drip line. The Mittleider system, you sprinkle a certain amount of the fertilizer around, different amounts for different plants. You have to water it in different lengths of time. It kind of got tedious, but we did it and we had success. But in our raised beds with our drip lines, with 50 tomato plants like we grew this year in this system, the best we did was 652 pounds, which was wonderful. Most of the time it was probably in the 500 plus range that we grew. I will say that when we went to this new system, our water bill dropped exactly in half. Even though we were using drip system, our water bill dropped exactly in half. So that's another great thing in trying to save water and so on. But anyway, then when we moved here, I'm 78, my wife's 73, and it's just getting too hard to get down and up and raise food in our raised beds. So we had a patio area you can see behind me, and hopefully you can see part of the system that we built there. I got online again and I became interested in Larry Hall, his YouTube videos on his rain gutter grow system. And he started out by just growing in rain gutters and framing it up, and he did other things. I got interested in it growing this way, so I thought, our home is faced so that where you're looking now is north, and in the winter we get very little sun back here. However, this patio behind us was wide open to sun, and I thought, you know what, I want to try that system. So I adapted it, and we built the 3 pipes that you see behind me, and we put them in. In the meantime, we had planted our raised beds. We had 2 raised beds that were 4 feet by 32 feet long, and then 2 around the perimeter of the fence that were 30 inches wide. So we decided to try this system, see how it worked. It worked so well that even though we had the other system, plants in the other raised beds, we decided to go ahead and make our whole backyard a garden using this other system, which we're not sorry now that we decided that, but we questioned our decision as we were making it. It took us probably 2 months to do, being as old as we are and not so skilled. Anyway, again, it was growing so well. If you've seen the 2 broccoli plants that my wife is holding in a picture earlier post, we grew those in these 3.5 gallon containers behind us, and it was in straight coco coir using the fertilizer mix that we used. So we knew that that would work well, but we didn't want to go to a whole new system when we built the new one, so we decided just to adapt it and use the soil mix that we had in our raised beds. So that's what we decided to do. But anyway, this system was so successful that that's why we decided to go big time and take the gamble. That was last fall, and we grew a lot of wonderful produce. I will say that we started with the 3.5 gallon containers. We didn't think that they needed to be so big, but they're tall, 10, 12 inches deep, and when we would plant a head of lettuce in there, it would fill the whole thing. And we were finding that we just couldn't really conveniently put in as much as we wanted in those containers. And so we started looking at maybe something that was flatter and more surface area. I will say, just to kind of wind this up, that we had success in those. However, because of the limitation and the fact that we were wondering how in the world are we going to support tomatoes or taller binding things, peppers and other things around a round bucket, the support system we had, we already had them, they worked well, but they were square, they wouldn't fit, and so we started looking to do for the beds. We found the bus tub ideas. We had grown in those inside in the summer to grow lettuce just in water and the fertilizer system that we use. That's all, no soil. And we grew wonderful lettuce in the summer in our home with supplemented lights. So we knew the system would work. People were saying, well, you need 20-gallon containers, you need 20 inches of soil to grow tomatoes, the bigger the better. I'd grown tomatoes for 15 years in 7 inches of soil. I knew it could be done, and so I wasn't afraid at all to put them in the tubs, the bus tubs, because they're only 7 inches deep, but they hold just over 1 cubic foot of soil. And you wouldn't think you could grow tomatoes in that, but you saw from my pictures what we grew. We averaged, in these bus tubs, we averaged 16¼ pounds per plant, and in the 3.5-gallon containers they were 8¾ almost double the production in the others. So that kind of gives you a background of how we got to where we are, and hopefully you find this informative. Now, the next one that we do, the next video, will be on the system, how it works. We'll try to answer all the questions, but we know there will be more later. We maybe will be able to respond then on the Facebook website, but it was just so much to answer and explain that we just felt like we should do a video. So hopefully this helps, and now we'll do another one in a few minutes.